going to first go on with the outline. So this is for today's lecture. We're going to have a program overview. Then I'm going to have a icebreaker, which is not included in here, but I want you guys to get to know each other because there are going to be a lot of team activities and individual activities that we try to make it online. And I'm going to introduce you guys to the United Nations, and you guys are going to have to take a quick survey. Then I'm going to give an introduction to what NMIMUN is and how to do country research and assign homework. It's not specifically homework that we're assigning. It's going to be an highly advised work that we advise you guys to do, but then we won't be able to check whether you guys did it or not, but then it will just really help for your future activities. So please do them, and let's get started. And just a thing to consider, there are ages from rising freshman to rising senior. So people who are in rising senior, please just keep in mind that if the pace is a little bit slow, please be understanding because there are people who are just joining who are rising freshmen, and people who are in rising freshmen, if you just believe that this is a little bit too hard or just too many information, then all the information are posted in Google Classroom. So just please reference back to those when you have a quiz or when you have like a team activity, because this information will be vital. Okay. So let's start with our program overview. This is going to be a detailed outline of what our NMI summer program is going to look like, what activities you can expect, what lectures you can expect, and how long it will be, etc. And starting with our program schedule, we have our NMIMUN sessions. It's broken into 4 NMIMUN sessions. Each session is going to be 2 days, except one special session, which is only going to be 1 day, which I'll explain later on. And each session you can expect around 2 hours. And today's session 1, it's going to be June 13th and June 14th. But for today, we're going to do program interview, survey, blah, 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 that I said before. Tomorrow in our session 1, June 14th class, we're going to talk about position papers and we're going to have a team activity. Then we're also going to teach you guys about opening speeches, and we're going to have a team activity reflecting on the lecture we gave on opening speeches. And on session 2, it's going to be on June 20th and June 21st. For June 20th class, we're going to have opening speech presentation. So on June 14th, we're going to give a homework on presentation, and you're going to have to give it on June 20th. Then we're going to teach you about the different speech method that you can do during the overall MUN conference. And we're going to do an individual activity just trying out those different speech methods. And for session 2, June 21st class, we're going to teach, or not me, but then we're going to have a new teacher, Alan Lee, who's going to teach about points and motions. And we're also going to have a team activity on it. So if you guys can see this, schedule and this presentation, the highlighted gray ones are the activities, any team activities or any individual activities that you guys can do. But then these are opportunities for you guys to earn points and have fun. But then if you look at our schedule today, you can see that there's no activities, there's no individual or team activities. It's only going to be a lecture today, and I can promise you that today is going to be the hardest, but from tomorrow, there's going to be more fun activities that you guys can participate in. So for today, just think that it's going to be really hard, tedious, and information-packed. And from tomorrow, it's going to get better, okay? And by points, what I mean is that this is a competitive summer program. If you guys have the most points at the end, you guys will win an award, and that will be later explained. And I'll move on to NMIMUN session 3 and 4. So NMIMUN session 3 is the session that's the 1-day session, and that will be taught by James Jung. And he'll teach you guys about resolutions and authorship speech, and you guys are going to have a team activity on it. And for NMIMUN session 4, it's going to be on July 11th and July 12th. It's going to be a fun committee. So our teaching and lectures will all be over by session 3. And by session 4, we're going to try to practice all of the lectures and refresh what we have taught you and put it into practice so that when we transition into our actual conference, you guys won't have any problems, and it'll be easier for you guys to digest all of the information. So for session 4, it's going to be a fun committee, a topic of your guys' choice. It'll only be 3 hours long, and our session 4 is going to be the same schedule as above. And after all the NMIMUN session, the last 2 days is going to be a final conference. So a final conference is, we try to imitate it as much as possible, like as closely as possible to our actual conference, what you would expect if you go on to a off-island competition for MUN. This is the only day where it's not going to be 3 hours. It's going to be from morning to afternoon. And it's going to be from 9 a.m. to 9:30. We're going to have opening ceremony, session 1, break, session 2, lunch, session 3, break, and etc. And we're trying to finish it in day 1, but then if we can't, we'll move some of the debate time to day 2 and finish it off at 4 p.m. And on day 2, we're gonna start conference at 4 p.m. and we're gonna have any closing ceremony or conference that we have. And then we're gonna have our award ceremony. So this award ceremony is when we compile all of the points that everyone got, and then where we give awards. So they're not only the most points awards, but then they're also the best delegate award, outstanding delegate award, and also the best position paper award, which I'll also explain later on. So that's the schedule. And if you guys want to reference back to the schedule, the presentation will be uploaded on Google Classroom. And I tried to make the presentation as self-explanatory as possible, just in case you guys might have to leave between sessions, which I hope you guys don't have to. But then if you do, then please just reference back to this presentation if you forget anything, and then refresh your memory. I'll explain to you guys about the point system. So if you guys can see here, this is the different points system that we'll follow. This is the topic and how much points you can get. So for participation points, it's 5 points. That means you're on here on time and you're here throughout the whole session. And then for being here on time and throughout the whole lecture, you guys have 5 points. Then for when you guys are late, but within 15 minutes, you'll still get 3 points. And if you're late, but if you're over 15 minutes, you'll still get 2 points. So even if you guys are late, please try to make it to the sessions, the lectures, so that you guys can at least earn 2 points and learn what we're doing or participate in the activities we're doing currently at that moment. And we're gonna have RQs. So RQs are questions that we're gonna ask in between lectures to see if you guys are understanding everything that we're saying, or RQs are like for saying if you guys are paying attention. And RQs, we're gonna put up the question in the PowerPoint, and you guys are going to privately message Alan Lee. So the people you might message might change each day, but then the teacher will specify who you're supposed to send the RQ answers to, each in the beginning of the conference. Okay, and there's going to be a quiz around the end of the end of the NMIMUN summer session. And the number of points you get on the quiz reflects how much points you'll be able to earn and compile and put it in your record. And for homework, there are going to be around 2 homeworks. It's simple, 5 completion points and 5 points for turning it on time. So simple, 10 points you can earn for just doing the simple homeworks that we give you. And finally, the most importantly, no, not finally, but then most importantly, we have our position paper. Position papers are one of the hardest, but one of the most important part of MUN. And you guys will be able to earn 60 points for this. The rubric will be posted on Google Classroom. And try to hit all of those rubrics, and we'll go down the line of point 1 to 3 for each criteria. If you guys get 1 for any of the criteria, then we'll explain it to you individually why you got it 1 and maybe what you could do to make it better. But for position paper, try to put in as much time and effort you can and turn it in. And there will be team and individual activities. For the points for each teachers and for each activity, it will be different. So before we put you guys into teams, or before we put you guys or assign the individual activities, you'll be reminded of how many points you guys can get for this activity. So it'll be specified, and there's no set point for that. Then starting off, we'll start off with 1 RQ. Our first RQ, how many points do you get for attending the program on time and present through this whole lecture? And please send the answers to Alan Lee through private message. And I'll give you guys 2 minutes. So right now is Korean time 1:19, Saipan time 2:19. So by 2:21, I'll say it's time, and then we'll move on to our lecture. So please please text Alan Lee through a private message for your answer, and if you get it right, then we'll put 1 point into your record. If not, try it next time.
All right, Eileen, could you repeat the question, please?
The question is, how many points do you get for attending the program on time, for, and present through this whole lecture? It's the one that is on the presentation right now. And then we're gonna have a break, and then we can resume. And if I don't see the text, then just privately message the proctors, and then the proctors will say stop, and then we're gonna have a break and continue. Okay? Okay, let's start. So I'll first start with the introduction to the United Nations, starting with the background story. So we're gonna delve into a little bit of history here. Okay, once upon a time, there was a prince. He was the Prince of Austria-Hungary. He was unfortunately assassinated by a Serbian because Serbia at the time wanted independence from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. As some of you may know, this prince was known by the name of Franz Ferdinand. He wasn't necessarily the prince, but he was the heir presumptive to the throne of Austria-Hungary Empire. This led to countries allied with Serbia and allies aligned with Austria-Hungary to get involved and start something as we know as World War I. We may know that the allies of Serbia as the allies of World War I, or the Entente powers with UK, France, Japan, and the United States. Then we have Austria-Hungary's allies, also known as the Central Powers with Germany, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire. Through this conflict, 18 million people died. After this war ended in 1918, we had World War II in 1939, just after 2 decades of peace, due to the Treaty of Versailles and many other reasons. One reason is because the first attempt to create something similar to the United Nations, also known as the League of Nations, some of you may know, it failed miserably. So this cooperation didn't work and World War II happened. And yes, as our World War II commences, here comes Hitler, Stalin, and many other people who just seem like the center of our history books. And that mess lasts until 1945 with approximately 85 million people dead. Through this endless conflict, many civilians' basic human rights and sustainable living conditions that the country are responsible for are broken and have not been met. By early 1940s, we hear the world that is drenched in poverty, blood, and pain, crying for peace. And finally, for those who are wondering why I'm blabbering about history, on January 1st, 1942, we have representatives of 26 nations in the Entente power meet at Washington and sign the Declaration of the United Nations, endorsing the Atlantic Charter. Here is our start of our great and almighty United Nations. This United Nations was officially restructured on June of 1945, where the representatives of 51 nations met at San Francisco to complete the Charter of the United Nations. I'll share to you guys about this important charter later in the lecture, but anyways, this charter is what we can say that defines the United Nations. As you know today, you can compare it to the Constitution in the United States that structures our United States government or the political system. There are some changes in our current UN compared to the ancient ones, however. Now in the UN, there are 193 member states. And by member states, we mean the countries that are involved and represented in the UN. And their meeting rooms are also global, with few of the biggest one in New York, Geneva, Nairobi, and Vienna. There are regular annual sessions for these member states to gather and address everyday world problems. But there may be emergency meetings like the one we had due to the coronavirus, if you guys were updated about the UN news. And now I'll talk about the goals of the United Nations and what their purpose is for. So a long time ago, their main goal used to be ensuring world peace, but now they also work to uphold international law, protect human rights, promote worldwide democracy, and ensure peace and security. The list I addressed, as shown in the presentation here, are the main goals of the United Nations tries to strive towards. And listed here are the 17 mini goals which split up the 4 main ones that I addressed before. These 17 mini goals are also known as the Sustainable Development Goals, And these are the goals that the United Nations serves for. And these goals are called for action by all countries, either poor, rich, or middle income, to promote prosperity while protecting our Earth's peace and guarding it against literally any other conflicts or world wars. Some of them being no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, which basically means no pollution. And they also work to promote decent work and economic growth, which means they try to upgrade employment, and industry, innovation, and infrastructure, reduce inequalities, sustainable city communities, responsible consumption and production, climate change, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institution and partnership. What they mean by partnership means that they want the UN is trying to work to gather global cooperation from all countries around the world. There's 17 goals you guys don't necessarily need to know, but then just have a grasp on what they're trying to work towards. But then these 4 mini goals will be important. Okay. Now I'll talk about the main bodies of the United Nations. They're also called the main organs. So they're like what should I say? So in the United States government, there's the House of Representatives, the Senate, the Congress. That's one body, and then we have the legislative, the judiciary, and then the executive, right? So just like the bodies, there are 6 main bodies of the UN, just like there are 3 main bodies in the United States government. And this is basically the summary. And this is a lot of information. This is just like a cheat sheet of everything that I'm going to be talking to you guys for like the last 15 minutes, in the next 15 minutes. The 6 important organs that you guys have to know is General Assembly, also known as the GA, Security Council, also known as the UNSC, and the Economic Social Council, the Secretariat, the International Court of Justice, also known as ICJ, and the Trusteeship Council. Okay, and within these big bodies or big organs, you see like UNICEF or UNHRC or WHO, as some of you guys might have heard of. They're part of the UN, but then they're under the bodies of UN. So they're all summarized here. I'll first talk to you guys about the General Assembly. So they're also known as the GA. The General Assembly is the main deliberative, policymaking, and representative organ of the UN. All 193 member states of the UN are represented in the General Assembly, making it the only UN body with universal representation. For other UN bodies, some countries are missing and some countries are not allowed in, or only 15 countries are allowed in. General Assembly is the only council where every 193 member states are represented. Each year in September, the full UN membership meets in the General Assembly Hall in New York for annual General Assembly sessions, and general debate, which many heads of state attend and address. As you guys have known, I don't know if you guys know BTS, but then like important heads of state like Queen Elizabeth or wide-known celebrities come up in these General Assemblies, and then they do give speeches. So this is like where important people come out and give speeches in the UN. They're mostly they mostly come out in GA assemblies and they give speeches. So decisions on important questions such as those on peace and security, admissions of new members, and budgetary matters require 2/3 majority of the General Assembly. Decisions on other questions are simple majority. The General Assembly each year elects a GA president to serve 1-year term of office. And the 74th session of GA president is President Tijani Muhammad Bande. But then in UN, what they address year as is like they do it by number. So they don't say the the president who served in the 74th year is President Tijani Muhammad Bande. They say on the 74th session. So if it's after 3 years, then it's going to be the 77th session. That's just how everything is numbered in the UN. So if you see like resolutions or if you see any other documents published by the UN, they're going to say the 4th session, then that means 4 years after the United Nations was made. Just keep that in mind so that you guys don't get confused when you look at any other documents. And I'll talk to you guys about the Security Council. That's the UNSC. The Security Council has primary responsibility under the UN Charter for the maintenance of international peace and security. It has 15 members, 5 permanent and 10 non-permanent members. Each member has one vote. But the UNSC won't be able to pass a resolution if any of the 5 permanent members, China, USA, France, UK, and Russia, don't agree. Under the Charter, all members are obliged to comply with the Council's decision. The Security Council takes the lead in determining the existence of a threat to the peace or act of aggression. It calls upon the parties to a dispute to settle it by peaceful means and recommends methods of adjustment or terms of settlement. In some cases, the Security Council can resort to imposing sanctions or even authorize the use of force to maintain or restore international peace and security. The Security Council has a presidency which rotates and changes each month. So this month, just for your information, will be France, and next month will be Germany. As you can see in UNSC, it's not an individual who becomes the president, it's the country itself. So France will be the president of the UNSC for June. Going into Economic and Social Council. The Economic and Social Council is the principal body for coordination, policy review, policy dialogue, and recommendations on economic, social, and environmental issues, as well as the implementation of internationally agreed development goals. It serves as the central mechanism for activities on the UN system, and it's a specialized agency in the economic, social, and environmental fields, supervising subsidiary and expert bodies. It has 54 members, so saying there are 54 countries who are attending the conferences, elected by the General Assembly for overlapping 3-year terms. It is the United Nations central platform for reflection, debate, and innovative thinking on sustainable development. Then we have the Trusteeship Council. Okay. The Trusteeship Council was established in 1945 by the UN Charter under Chapter 8 to provide international supervision for 11 trust territories that have been placed under the admission of 7 member states, and ensure that adequate steps were taken to prepare the territories for self-government and independence. By 1994, all trust territories has attained a self-government or independence. The Trusteeship Council suspended operation on November 1st, 1994. By resolution adopted on May 25th, 1994, the Council amended its rules of the procedure to drop the obligation to meet annually and agreed to meet as occasion required, by its decision or the decision of the President or at the request of a majority of its members of the General Assembly or the Security Council. So the Trusteeship Council, as I've presented to you, is somewhat irrelevant in our UN body right now, but then it's still a major part of our organ. So just know that this exists, but it's okay if you guys don't know what really it is. And for those of you who are interested in law and those kind of stuff, there are going to be a lot of UN MUN conferences that imitate International Court of Justice. So pay attention to this. The International Court of Justice is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. Its seat is at the Peace Palace in The Hague, Netherlands. It's the only one of the 6 principal organs of the United Nations not located in New York, USA. The court's role is to settle, in accordance with international law, legal disputes submitted by the states and to give advisory opinions on legal questions referred to by the authorized United Nations organs and specialized agencies. So the one important thing to consider in the ICJ is that if you're determining something as legal, or if you're trying to settle any legal disputes, it's not the regional law that these countries uphold, it's the international law established by the UN that you're supposed to follow. So when you do research, be careful to not include laws that the country set up. It has to be the law that the UN set up. And yes, then we go on to the Secretariat. The Secretariat comprises the Secretary General and tens of thousands of international UN staff members who carry out the day-to-day work of the UN as mandated by the General Assembly and the organization's other principal organs. The Secretary General is the chief administrative that I'll talk about later. And the UN staff members are recruited internationally and locally, and work in duty stations and on peacekeeping missions all around the world. But serving the cause of peace in a violent world is a dangerous occupation. Since the founding of the United Nations, hundreds of brave men and women have given their life in this service. So stepping into the United Nations and working as a staff in here is something respectful, and then they do it mostly out of voluntary will. And that's our six main organs. And I'm going to create a separate subsection called the Secretary General because that's the most important individual that we should know in the UN. Okay, the Secretary General. Aside from the GA President, a General Assembly President, who the General Assembly elects, there's another important figure that the General Assembly elects not every year, but every 5 years. General Assembly elects the Secretary General with the recommendation from the Security Council, and the candidates are subject to veto from any of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. So the 5 permanent members that I said, that I listed in UNSC have extremely a lot of powers in the UN because first of all, they're part of the permanent members in UNSC, and then they have the power to veto any resolutions in UNSC and also veto the candidate for Secretary General. So if you are placed in a UNSC MUN conference, make sure to compromise with the 5 permanent countries, or else your resolution will be vetoed, and your effort for your whole debate and your position of resolution writing will go into the trash. So make sure to know the 5 permanent member beliefs and the extent to how flexible they will be and whether or not they will agree to your resolution. More of this will be addressed later, but just keep that in mind. And this Secretary General is the chief administrator of the UN. So they overlook all of the activities in UN, and then they create an annual report, and then they do the most work, but then they're also the most respected and the most powerful individual in the UN. Okay, after that, we have RQ number 2. Name 3 of the 6 main organs of the United Nations, and please send the answers to Alan through private message. You guys have 2 minutes, and after 14, we'll restart our lecture. One minute remaining. Okay. Alan, did everyone do it?
Not everybody.
Okay. Do you guys need more time, or do you just want me to continue?
Raise your hand if you need more time.
The thing is, I can't see the hands.
Yeah, when I say hands, I mean the little blue thing, not your physical hand.
Is there anyone? Okay. Then let's get started. Um, Now I'm going to talk to you guys about the key documents. So one thing you have to know is there are hundreds and thousands of resolutions passed by the UN because it's been in our world for 75 years, and there's not just one main organ. There are like, as you saw in the chart, there are like hundreds of different organizations or small UN committees that work together to create resolutions. So each year, hundreds of resolutions come out. So they're all really important resolutions, and they're all resolutions you should consider if you're going or research about if you are going into a certain conference. So, for example, if you're going into UNICEF and you're addressing child labor, then you should look at resolutions passed by the UNICEF about child labor. So those will be key documents for you. But the key documents that I'm addressing right now is universal key documents that you should know no matter where or what committee you enter as what or any country. So there are four important key documents. Those are the UN Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Convention for the Rights of Child, and the Statute of International Court of Justice. The UN Charter and the Statute of International Court of Justice, you guys have to know what's inside it. You guys just have to know that that exists. And maybe if you want to look through it, if you're part of the ICJ and UN committee, then maybe you'd want to look through it. But then the UN Charter is the Charter of the United Nations that was signed on June 26, 1945 in San Francisco at the conclusion of the United Nations Conference on International Organization, and comes into force on October 24th, 1945. So this was the UN Charter that I was talking about while I was explaining to you guys about the background history of the United Nations and like how it all formed. This UN Charter was the one that made it official that United Nations is a official organization that these countries are obligated to attend and discuss important topics on. And this is what established at the United Nations, but you don't have to know what's necessarily in this UN Charter. Then we have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is also known as the UDHR. It's widely known, so even though a person or a delegate comes up in a committee and says, as you guys see in the UDHR, this is defined as blah, 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 you guys have to know what UDHR is. And the UDHR, or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, is a milestone document in the history of human rights. It's drafted by a representative with different legal and cultural backgrounds from all regions of the world. The declaration was proclaimed by the United States General Assembly in Paris on December 10th, 1948. So 1948 as a common standard of achievement for all people and all nations. It sets out for the first time fundamental human rights to be universally protected. If you guys see in the parentheses, it's the General Assembly Resolution 217A. That means that this document, this UDHR, was part of a resolution. And what people did was that they took that part of a resolution out and then they made it separately and they gave a separate name, the UDHR, because it's so important. And this document is in Google Classroom. So if you guys look into Google Classroom, you'll see UDHR and it'll be a list of the different human rights that people have. And these human rights listed in the UDHR is really important because it's a controversial topic for when you guys are debating about human rights. You guys can't necessarily debate and say human rights are important because people are going to ask, okay, in your country's perspective, what are human rights? In your country's perspective, is the government providing food for the people, us protecting the human rights of the people, or is it just giving them free election, etc.? So human rights is a really broad topic, and the definition of human rights is universally established in this document. So if you guys have any committee topics that talks about human rights, then make sure to read over this document and have this document with you when you enter your MUN conference, okay? This third one is the Convention of the Rights of the Child. It's the world's most widely ratified human rights treaty. There is not much to it in this Convention of the Rights of the Child. but then the link is attached at the Google Classroom. Also, if you guys are looking into something that is related to child, like child prostitution or child labor or child trafficking, then make sure to visit this website and see the information and resolutions that this convention uploaded. Okay? And the Statute of International Court of Justice. This is similar to the UN Charter, what that established the UN. This is um, the formal statement that establishes the International Court of Justice. So it just says how the ICJ is structured, how the ICJ should run, and what are its laws and restrictions, etc. And these four are the key documents that you guys should know. That's it for the introduction to the United Nations, and we're going to have a survey. So Alan Lee is going to post a survey on the chat box. I'll explain what the survey is. The survey is, as I've explained before, let's go back. Here in the schedule, you see the NMIMUN final conference. This survey is to choose what topic we're going to debate about. So be serious and be serious about what conference or topic you want to talk about. And then we're going to follow through this topic throughout our whole NMIMUN summer program. So choose a topic that you guys are interested in and really want to debate about. And we're not going to debate or we're not going to do a survey on what topic we're going to do for the fun committee, because for this, we're going to choose it the day before on session 3. And it's going to be a fun one. But then the topics provided for this conference, as you will see later in the survey, are serious topics. So yeah, that's the purpose of their survey. And the survey time is going to be 10 minutes. And Alan should have posted it on the chat room. Go there and then I'll start a timer.
Please let me know if you guys have any questions.
Yeah. And then after this, we can take a break and then start back at our lecture. Okay, let's start. From now, it's going to be fun. It's not going to be information based, and we're actually going to go into what MUN is. So pay attention and yeah. Guys, do I talk too fast? Can you like nod or no? Because you guys don't like talking. Okay.
Eileen. So
Yeah?
Jaren said that he's gonna be there for the next one. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, this is recorded and it'll be posted on YouTube, so make sure he follows up with this video before he comes to the second one.
I'll tell him.
Okay, thank you, Vivian. Okay, let's start. Introduction to MUN. So this is fairly similar to mock trial, as in where you guys do mock trial to learn and experience virtually what a trial is like, more in like a less serious version and in a student's perspective. This is the same case for MUN, where we try to imitate the UN conference and the UN setting and atmosphere, and then we try to experience it to the students. So what exactly is MUN? MUN is, as I said before, where we try to experience the United Nations in a student's perspective. And you guys can see in this photo, this is an actual UN conference meeting with actual delegates of that country and ambassadors of that country. And just imagine that this is you, okay? So you're the student. And make sure there is no one here. And then this is for am I making sense? This is for the students. I'll try to explain this well, okay? Tell me if you guys understand. So when you assign for a conference room, or when you sign up for a conference, you're gonna be given a country. Let's pretend that you are UK. You're the ambassador of UK for this conference. So you do the research of UK, and you do you research the history, the culture, and everything related to UK, and you research the topic itself. And how UK is related to that topic. For example, if it's child labor, then what's the child labor percentage in the UK? Or is UK for child labor, or is it against child labor? Is it really against child labor, or is it, do they not really care? They're just in the against side, and they're passive about this topic. So do a lot of research on that, and then you become the ambassador of the UK, and then you are going to attend this conference. And when you sit in the conference, in the front, you're gonna see your placard. So it's gonna say let's say it's gonna say United Kingdom, and you're going to sit here. And everyone here are going to be different countries and ambassadors of different countries, and they're all going to be students who do the research on the country that they're assigned. And let's say next to you, there is South Africa, and then here there's United States. You will probably have United States as your ally, because United States and United Kingdom have very similar views on child labor. So if the USA delegate did their research and know that you're going to be allies with them, then you get together with the United States delegate, and then you debate on a resolution that you can pass. But then South Africa that you're sitting next to will probably go against your resolution, because United Kingdom and the United States will probably go for a short-term resolution. That means that in a short term, they want to get rid of child labor. On the other hand, South Africa, a country that somewhat relies on child labor for economic sustainment, they won't say child labor is good, because they'll get attacked by the delegates. What they're gonna say is, okay, we know that child labor is bad, but then why not enact a long-term resolution? So they're going to say, we will try to banish child labor year by year, but then let's do it in a long term so that it won't necessarily hurt our economical or our economy as much, or it won't be as detrimental. And the UK and United States will be like, no, we can't. We have to abolish child labor right now due to this reasons. So that's how usually MUN works. That's just like how United Nations work. And yeah, were you guys able to understand? That's just like the grasp, yeah? And then I'll go more into detail of MUN. No. So these are pictures of MUN, and this is how it's going to be if you are going to international MUN, off-island MUN committees. And as you can see, there's an ethnic and cultural background diversity. And this students come with all of their research binders, and there may be people who wear their country's clothes. Like as you can see, the girl here is representing China. So she wears China's traditional clothes, and then she represents as a Chinese delegate. And there are a lot of pros and cons to MUN, but then cons may be that you will have to do a lot of research and it's time taking. But then because there's a lot of pros, it looks really good to colleges. And this is the reason why you guys did a good job coming to this summer program, because by coming to the summer program, you'll be able to attend the NMIMUN conference. And by attending the NMIMUN conference, you'll be able to show the colleges several different positive traits that you won't be able to show through different extracurriculars. That being, you'll be able to show the colleges about the fact that you learned about diplomacy and international relations. You can show the colleges that you learned about what United Nations is, and also teamwork. MUN highlights teamwork more than any other debate extracurricular activities or speech extracurricular activities, because debate and speech, there are first, second, and third, but in MUN there's no. The best prize that you can win is, of course there are awards at the end, but then the best prize you can win is passing your resolution. So you're not only cooperating with 2 or 3 people, you have to cooperate with at least 1/3 of your conference members. If you can't even get 1/3 of your conference members to agree with your views, then you won't be able to pass any resolutions, and you'll be the outcast of your committee. So what you have to do is you have to work on teamwork. So you have to cooperate, you have to be flexible, and you have to know, until this line, I will be able to be flexible, but then if I go over this line, then it's going against my country's beliefs, and I won't be able to cooperate with you. But then until that, you have to know that line well, and then until that line, try to cooperate with others and try to draft a resolution that everyone or majority of the conference members can agree on or pass. Okay, so that's the highlight of MUN. And these are the awards given in MUN. There are 4. There's the best delegate, the outstanding delegate, the honorable mention, and the verbal commendation. So the best delegate is the highest achieving award in any given committee. You get best delegate. There are different criteria to getting best delegate. One being good position paper, one being participating a lot in conferences, so standing up and giving a lot of speeches. And the third is etiquette, so showing that you're respecting other countries, and then you're also respecting your country's stance. And the fourth one is keeping in act. So that what that means is that you are truly yourself. You're not portraying any of your personal feelings. You're only portraying your feelings as the ambassador of your country. So you're technically acting the whole time. That's the hard case about immune, where if the country's stance don't really align with your personal beliefs, then you'll have a hard time passionately going for your belief. But then that's the one thing that they measure when they are giving out best delegate awards. And the second one is outstanding delegate award. You probably won't get a trophy for this. You'll probably just get a certificate, but then that still looks good for colleges. So go for any other awards, and there's honorable mention and verbal commendation. And for people who want to participate in International Court of Justice, there's the Best Lawyer Award, the Best Judge Award, and the Honorable Lawyer Award, or they also call it the Losing Lawyer Award. So there are 2 first place. So if you get Best Lawyer Award, you're still first place in that committee, and if you get Best Judge Award, you're still first place. And then you get second place if you get Honorable Lawyer Award. And we did this in Saipan International School. So if some of you guys know, we have a SISMUN, which is Saipan International School Model United Nations. We officially started this 2 years ago. We've started with 9 members, but now we have over 20, I think we have around 25, and then around 4 more people joined. So this is our SIS MUN conference, and we try to hold this every 2 months. And in this small conference, we give awards too. What we give is we only give best position paper award, and then we also give best delegate award and outstanding delegate award. We don't give honorable commendation and verbal commendation. But this awards received through these conferences will still look good in colleges. And this is a small scale where it's only 1 high school. What I wanted, or what we're working towards for this this project or through this summer program, is that we want to make a CNMI, or also known as the NMIMUN conference, where we want to open up this opportunity for all of you guys. And people who get the awards in the NMIMUN conference will look even better, because you're going to a place where you're representing all CNMI high schools, and you're getting an award for MUN. This is how our certificate looks like, and this will be similar to the certificate given in this summer program. And we're going to give out best position paper. We're also going to give out best delegate and outstanding delegate. Okay, so these are the steps for MUN. You first look for a conference. What you try to do is you try to look for a conference that is near you. So don't go somewhere don't go all the way to like Iceland. Try to go somewhere like Taiwan, Korea, or China, so that the plane tickets are cheaper. And sign up for the conference if you think that the plane ticket is cheap, if you think that the delegate or the participation fee is cheap, and if you like the conference in general, just sign up for the conference. And 2 months to 3 months prior to the conference, you're going to get a background guide. In the background guide, you're also going to be assigned your country. And right after you receive your background guide, this is important, you have to start your country research right away. You have to start creating your research binder, okay? That is where you put in all the resolutions passed before, all the UN resolutions, all the information you can't remember about your country in here, all the other laws that you should keep in mind, and you keep a research binder that you're going to bring to your committee. Your committee will not allow computers, so you won't be able to do any other further research once you enter the committee. So it's important to cover all the information that people might attack you with. It's kind of like a tub if you guys did speech, but then you go in with all those information, and then you debate. And if someone attacks you with a certain law, then you can probably bring that paper out and say, according to this law, blah 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 blah. But then usually they won't go as detailed. But it would be nice if you had all of those information backing you up. Then after you get your background guide and country assigned, 1 month to 2 weeks prior to the conference, they're gonna make your position paper due. Position papers, we're going to teach you how to write, and we're going to teach you everything about immune, so you don't have to worry. But then your position paper will be due, and then that's the first thing that they'll grade. So that what should I say? That's the first thing that you'll be given points for your awards. So it's good that you make a good first impression, and it's good that you start off a first one step ahead of other people by creating a thorough and a good position paper for them to grade. And on D-Day, on the conference day, this is how the schedule will look like. This is a typical one-day conference schedule. It's 8 a.m. to either 5 p.m. and it goes down way over to 7 p.m. for some conferences. And it's usually 2 to 3 days consecutive. So you debate from extremely high-level conferences. You debate from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. for 3 days consecutively. That's how MUN is. It's like you cram all of your information and all of the research you've done, and then you bring it to your conference, and then you, within that short amount of 3-day time, you try to debate and you try to create a resolution, a real life resolution on how to solve the problem. And in the resolution, it should be really detailed, saying like, where do you get your funds? What should you do to solve this certain problems? Within child labor, for example, there are different branches of problems that you have to solve, not only child labor. So, for example, if it's a cultural problem, then you have to solve a cultural problem. And if it's more of an education problem, because lack of education, then you have to create ways to ensure stronger education and more quality teaching. And you have to address where you're going to get the money, etc., and how you're going to increase awareness and everything. It might be confusing to you guys as of now, but then as you guys experience it real life through the fund committee, and as you guys experience it through the NMI final serious committee, it will be easier for you guys to digest all of this information that I'm talking to you guys about right now. And the NMI final serious committee is not the NMI committee. The NMI committee will be held around late September. And you guys who are in this program are going to be a step ahead of people who are not necessarily in this program, because you guys will know more about how to write position papers, more about how to write, give speeches in MUN, and just more about MUN itself. So please take this opportunity to reflect on all of the information you've learned and use it well to win the NMIMUN conference. Okay? Oh wait, I forgot to say one thing. So that's in day one, it's approximately 6 hours and 30 minutes of debate. And including lunch break, you're only going to be given 1 hour and 25 minutes of break. So it's a debate extensive conference. And now I'm going to talk to you guys about how to do country research. And after this, we are done. Around 20 more minutes and we're gonna be done. So hang on. Okay, country research. There are 4 layers to country research, and country research is the first thing after you get background guide and everything. That's the first step you have to do after you sign up for a MUN conference. The first layer is background research. So in the background guide, there are going to be important terms, key terms, and there are going to be key answer questions that will guide you to researching what you're supposed to research. So these questions are going to create a scope of your research so that you don't go research anything else irrelevant to the conference. And try to answer the key questions in the background guide, and make sure to know the key terms in and out that are addressed in the background guide, because in the conference, the delegates are going to use those key terms like once in a while, and you have to know all of that in order to refute or in order to support. And the second layer is going to be the United Nations research. That's going to be just researching in general the committee you're in, just researching what resolutions did your committee pass, what actions or what steps or what direction did your past UN committee head towards, and just seeing these important resolutions and seeing what was effective or was not, etc. And the third level is country research. So now you go in specifically into the country you're given. Few of the basic research you can start with is which side are you on. So one example that I can bring up right now is the North Korean missile crisis. So which side are you on? So if you're China, then you might be, you're in this middle, kind of in this middle ground, but then in this committee you would say that you're against it, but then you'd be more passive about it. And on the other hand, like South Korea or UK would be extremely against it. So to each side there are different levels too. So are you extremely against it, are you just passively against it, or are you extremely for, or just passively for, and then you don't really care. So determining which side you are on is the first step to your country research. And then also look at what allies and enemies you have. So the enemies you have are probably going to start attacking you right away at the NMIMUN conference. Make sure to be prepared for what beliefs that they have, and what points you can attack those beliefs with. And for your allies, just keep in mind that you have these kind of allies and try to approach them either during break time or message them. So there's this note passing in NMIMUN where you say, pretend I'm UK and then my ally is United States, then I would say, to UK from United States, do you want to form a country bloc, or do you want to be allies? Because I feel like we have similar views on this, and then you pass the note, and then either UK will say yes or no. And when you give a speech, then UK will stand up and say, in support of the delegate of the United States, UK, the United Kingdom would like to say that blah, 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 blah. So having this support and ally ground is really important in this NMIMUN conference, because the majority is the winner, either for resolution passing or conference or just in general. So try to get as much allies as possible. And the third part to country research is past country actions. So for, let's say, let's bring in the example of child labor. In the United States, did they create programs? Did they actively create these programs regionally to fight child labor, or did they just comply with the international law and then they didn't do anything specifically in that country? Were they more passive in that country, or did they specifically say that people who companies who practice child labor are going to be taken off from certain lists, etc.? So are they active in the country sense, in their cultural sense, or are they more like, we'll follow what the international law said in UN, but then we won't do anything by ourselves? Are they kind of that side? So you have to determine the past country actions and the past programs that your country tried to enact, and see if they're going to be more strongly against or strongly for, or more passively against and passively for. And the last level is possible solutions. So this is the most important, is this is 100% your country's perspective. So what you're doing is you're trying to research a solution that would be best for your country. As I said, when I brought in child labor for South Africa, they would go for long term, where in 1 year they would try to decrease as little child labor as much as possible. On the other hand, in the United States perspective, they would try to go for short term and abolish child labor as fast as possible. So there are, for different countries, there are going to be different solutions that they come up with. And the resolution is where they compile all of that amongst allies and then create a similar and a similar resolution with similar beliefs with countries with similar perspectives. So in order to research past possible solutions, look at the past resolutions that your country agreed to pass, and look at the past resolutions that your country said no to, and see why they said no to and the possible reasons why they would disagree. And the second part is you would look at the effect that that solution would have on your country. So for South Africa, if they enact short term, then they would obviously see a detrimental effect on their economy. So they would say no to it. So looking at the effects that these solutions play in your country plays an important role. Okay. And this is it. Now we're gonna have our RQ number 3. What is the first step you should take after you receive your background guide and your country? Please send the answers to Alan Lee. And after you're done, we're officially done with our session 1. Okay. For the points you guys received, we'll privately message you on during today because today was lecture heavy, and from tomorrow we're starting team activity. So be excited for those, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
You guys can say if you have any questions. Okay, people who are still here, do you guys have any questions? No? You guys
No,
can.
I don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you for a lecture.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody
Yes.
can? I have a clarification question. So the topic we did